presidential campaign is a job interview. But as this presidential campaign has played out, the conversation has fell very far from the actual job the president must do in office. Over the last year or so at Face the Nation, we've tried to address that by talking to some people who have an idea of what a president actually does in office, so that we might evaluate whether the people running have some of the qualities that might pay off when they get the job.
I worked for some very different presidents. People would say, how could you work for both Barack Obama and George W. Bush? And I remind them, well, I worked for Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan. The difference is each one of those presidents, as strong-minded as each of them was, understood he did not have all the answers and surrounded himself with experienced, thoughtful people who would give good advice, and they were willing to listen. They would often make their own independent judgments. They often would act contrary to the advice they were receiving. But nonetheless, they only acted after they had listened to different points of view and then had the opportunity to make up their mind.
Is that a fatal flaw?
I think that one would have to show between now and the election, it seems to me, that you were willing to do that. And willing to listen to people, willing to adjust your positions, to give any sense of confidence that, I come into all this from the national security standpoint.
A good metaphor to think about the White House and the job of the presidency would be an air traffic controller with 500 planes in the air at any given moment, all of which think they're about ready to run out of fuel or need to make an emergency landing. There's a lot happening, and there's a lot of voices, and you need a person who has the temperament, that's a word that's been used a lot today, but has the ability to operate in an orderly way, that has a history of making good decisions under fire, and that can deal with it in an atmosphere where there's going to be a lot of conflicting voices and people saying unpleasant things about him or her, and responds in an appropriate fashion.
I think someone who has the leadership qualities that combine respect from the body politic, Republicans and Democrats alike, someone who projects an empathy and a humanity. I remember what Jack Kemp used to say, people don't care what you know until they know that you care, and we need somebody that kind of projects that image to Americans. And we need a president, frankly, we need a candidate who is the same person as a candidate and as a president. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a challenge with one of the candidates we have. And ultimately, we need someone that's decisive with good intuition, with really good intuition, who can distill. Mike mentioned all these challenges. It's the most complex 21st century. I don't think any president will have ever inherited a more complex world, whether it's the global economy, the scourge of terrorism, the digital forevermore. Mm-hmm. And we need somebody who's willing to listen to different points of view and be decisive once he or she decides to make that decision.
I would say he should have, or she should have, access to good information and exercise judgment wisely. So someone who thinks deeply about serious issues and who speaks clearly and uses language to educate, to inspire, and not to inflame. And I would say that a commander-in-chief, given all the complexities involved, you need to have a group of people who are also wise, seasoned, and will give you advice and not be simply yes men and women, but be willing to challenge you on crucial issues to say that you're wrong and need to change. So it requires a number of things, but I think having facts, information, knowledge, wisdom, and the ability to change your mind based upon the advice that you're getting from other people.
I boil it down to my most critical conversations with the president, which have been about covert action. Mm-hmm. And in here, that temperament, honesty, integrity thing really matters, because when you're talking to the president about a covert, it's covert for a reason, because frankly, operationally, ethically, legally, the course ahead isn't all that clear. And so when I'm talking to a president about that, I'm representing all the men and women at the Central Intelligence Agency. I want to know that I'm talking to a decent human being. I want to know that I'm talking to someone who broadly reflects the values of the country that we want to defend.
Now, the first thing
I think the American people should be looking for is somebody that can build a team and create a culture that knows how to organize it and move the ball down the field. And the reason for that is because no matter how good you are as president, you are overseeing 2 million people and $1 trillion plus budget and the largest organization on earth. And you can't do it all by yourself. And so you are reliant on really talented, hard-working, skilled people and making sure they're all moving in the same direction. And doing it without drama and not worrying as much about who's getting credit and creating all those good habits inside of an organization, I think are critical. The second thing I think a president needs is a sense of discipline. Personal discipline in terms of doing your homework and knowing your subject matter and being able to stay focused. Helping to make sure the team in the White House is disciplined, because you are responding constantly to unexpected events. And you've got to be able to just work those through in rapid, effective fashion, but also not lose track of your overall goals. The third is you need vision about where you want to take the country. And you've got to know ahead of time enough about the economy and foreign policy and American history and our system of government, so that when you stake out a vision that we need more economic equality in this country, you're just not making assertions, you're actually able to drive policy forward to achieve the vision. And then the final thing is you have to really care about the American people, not in the abstract, not as boilerplate, but you have to really every single day want to do your best for them. Because if you don't have that sense grounding you, you will be buffeted and blown back and forth by polls and interest groups and voices whispering in your heads, and you will lose your center of gravity. You will lose your moral compass. But if you really are here because, man, I want to make sure that woman who's working really hard is getting paid a decent wage. I really want that family with a sick kid to make sure they're not losing their home. Then, even when things go bad, and there are going to be times in this job where things go bad, you have a frame of reference. You know why you're doing it, and that means also that you can push through and do some things that may not be politically popular initially.